Hello and welcome to Sassy as Fuck. I'm Alex Radford, your visual virtuoso, joined by the mastermind of positioning strategy, John McGreevy. And today's guest is Rob Kaminski, a co-founder of Fletch that specialises in positioning and messaging for B2B startups. How you doing, Rob?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to hang out with you guys.
Oh, awesome. I'm sure we're going to, I know especially from like John's point of view, we're going to steal as much of, or as many of your ideas as possible and your thoughts. This is just a research. Like, even if this doesn't go out into the ether, it's just research for us. We've got thousands of notepads ready to just write down any of your kind of insights that you have.
Steal away. You have my permission. It's not even stealing to that degree. We definitely take the thesis and everything that we do is that if you're in a consulting practice, you should be open sourcing a lot of your ideas. And so feel free to take them as you guys see fit.
Well, on the topic of theft then. So my first question I want to start off with is that, so for anyone who follows you on LinkedIn, I thought it sounded like such a more malicious intro to a question I've ever said before. Like, on the topic of theft, you stole everything. No. So anyone who follows you on LinkedIn, everyone's very impressed, and I see this in your comments very often. How do you make such pretty infographics for your LinkedIn posts?
Yeah. Step one, make really ugly, shitty infographics for about a year, year and a half. Okay. And then there'll be this magical transformation where you start to get good. It's like anything, you put the time in. I would say for us, we sort of have a chip on our shoulders from a design perspective. So Anthony, my co-founder, and I, we met at a digital product studio. That's where we started working together. It's where we actually incubated the idea for Fletch. And we were told explicitly, we were part of the product strategy group. We were told explicitly by our design group that we are not designers and we should stay out of Figma. And so basically our whole business is looking at that statement and saying, no, we can do this. And so we spent the last 3 years in Figma tinkering around, figuring out how to build things. And so it's just lots of iterations. With one caveat, Anthony does have some design chops. Previously, he had done some Photoshop type stuff and has been in kind of creative content roles before. And so I'd say he's been leading the charge. But the short, boring answer is start and then iterate from there. And our whole aim in them was how do we get across really complex points in a simple way? And it's sort of just evolved over time.
Yeah, I think it's very effective. It's something that I think a LinkedIn post often needs a bit of seasoning. And infographics are that perfect thing of actually just presenting value in a way. But I think lots of people have gone to make infographics and given up after a few minutes, gone, I don't know, this is horrible. Why is it? And people, this is thing you guys make it look very easy. Doing that. In fact, I saw someone else today that was really impressive. I clicked in, and I think I realised it was Anthony's brother. And so I think there's just a nice little network there of you guys who are actually nailing infographics, and everyone else seems to be pretty awful at it. From what I've seen anyway, maybe to follow better people.
Maybe. It's one of those things, like with any type of content marketing, you really have to figure out the medium and how it works. Because when we started, we weren't doing a lot of infographics. It was text-based. Obviously, video's getting a lot of pull at the moment. And so it's evolving. You kind of have to follow what's going to work. And our whole thinking of it is it stops the scroll. Great. The hook can stop the scroll. The image can stop the scroll. And then what we found is that people, the savability aspect of it makes it very powerful for not only people to follow along, but them to actually adopt and use some of these things. And there was a time where even the algorithm, I think, was is this being saved? Is this being reshared? Is this being tagged to other people to join as sort of a proximity for this should be shown to more people? And so when we started to see that, we're let's just make every post have a visual component. I would say the algorithm is always a moving target, has sort of shifted away from that now that it's sort of been flooding the feed for everybody because more people are trying to do it.
Wow. Yeah. So you're saying that you can actually provide valuable content on LinkedIn and actually it has a use on kind of the social media world.
Imagine that. Our bar, we're really aggressive when people come to us and they're like, what should I post? And in the beginning, you should just post what you're doing, post the work. And the assumption being, if you're doing the work, someone else is doing the work, they're getting stuck in the same places. And so it's almost a build or consult in public. But as you get bigger and you use it for demand generation, your content needs to be good enough where someone would actually pay you just for that. And so I think when you set the bar like that and you start looking at your posts of like, would anybody pay for this idea? Would they pay for this insight? We start to realize that a lot of posts are filled with a bunch of bullshit. Like there is no insight. And we've been lucky. We kind of get this doubled usage of our content because 90% of the stuff that we share is just stuff that we've built for clients to help run our sprint process. It's like we're in a session, we're stuck on this one issue. And so we have to think through, how do I educate these founders and these teams to think through this, and how do we make a choice? That's where the asset creation comes from. And then we're like, that really worked well in that session. I bet you it's a good post. And maybe we'll polish it up a little bit and turn it into a post. And that's like even the way we practice today on the left-hand side of our boards when we're working in Figma. There's like 50 conceptual pieces that we'll pull from. It's like a commonly used library that we still apply today.
Oh, that's cool. Because this is the future, kind of like you're not having to think about just creating a post for the generic. We need to create a post. It's something that's transparent that you're actually doing. You're not having to like go, oh, it's 50 posts today because that's what the algorithm tells us to do. It's these are actual things that we're working on. So you kind of like you've worked with is it around over 80 startups, and you kind of open sourcing your kind of model for developing for the development and of positioning and messaging. So why are you sharing this playbook with the world? Like, are you deciding like certain parts are like open and certain are like private, or what's the kind of ethos? What's the thinking process for this?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. We've been first off, it's kind of wild to say this number. We're actually getting close to 500 startups that have gone through our process and our model.
Gosh,
and in doing this, like we felt like the whole adage, like you have to give value first, was always sort of baked into this like business that we built. And when we started, we didn't even really know what business we were building. We're like, you can get attention on LinkedIn, you get these followers, they sort of give you credibility, and then that credibility can be parlayed into inbound calls where you could sell something. And so we never like stopped and said, okay, let's give everything away for free. It was more just like, again, what's the most valuable content I can put out there? Now, there was a point where we did realize like anybody could take this. Like we've shared everything we've done, where we then started to be like, oh, it is open source. And we kind of felt empowered by that. And functionally, the way we see it happening, whether this is actually how it works, is people will take our stuff, they'll try and apply our framework or apply a model, and they can only take it so far. Like this stuff is complicated and you really need to have the right perspectives, and there's these underlying definitions that you need to understand. And so what we found early on is people were so excited there was a model, but then they would use it and they would kind of fuck it up. And that was good because then they would jump into our comments and they're like, hey, I fucked this up. I don't think it makes sense. It forced us to make the model better. But then also what happened is when people got stuck, then they're like, can you just do this for me? Like, I know you've used this to get a really good result in the end. And that's where we still get a lot of our customers where like they'll show up and they'll be like, yeah, I DIY'd this for 6 to 9 months. I'm ready to just let you guys do it. And so like while we're leaving some money and opportunity on the table by not gating all of it, what we have given has multiplied itself and compounded itself just in pure exposure of what we've given back to the community and the supporting people, whether you're an in-house product marketer, an early stage founder, or just a marketer who's curious about positioning.
It's like you say, when you show expertise, you show authority, you tell people how to do it. Like most people don't have the time, the money, the enthusiasm. Most people just like, as soon as someone can afford to outsource like this stuff, they just kind of will. And then I guess it becomes of who do you outsource to? The person who told you how to do it in the first place, the person who you look to, who writes the book, who creates the frameworks, who posts the valuable content. And it's easy to go, well, I'd just go for those guys then, because why wouldn't you? And the people who are doing it themselves, normally the people who can't afford to hire you anyway.
Yeah. And look, like we've been in consulting and service businesses for a while. These businesses, you're selling trust. Like you're selling a human to get them to think, wow, I believe these people can do the work. And if anyone who's ever tried to sell a service or deliver a service knows that if you have to convince them up front when they show up and they're skeptical, like you've got some challenges ahead, both in delivery and keeping them on board and keeping them happy and getting testimonials. And there's such a powerful thing when people show up and they already trust you. And so we just looked at that and we're like, we don't want to fight for deals. We could, and in the beginning when we were like just figuring this out, we would close people who were skeptical. Always the shittiest projects, always.
Yeah.
And when you flip the script and you're like, no, like give everything away for free so that when people show up at your door, they know exactly what you stand for, they know exactly how you do the work, and you've shown repeatedly for years of these 500 examples that you can do this. Like, no one can say anything to us about our credibility, to where like they come in and we're almost like, we're not assholes about it, but we're basically like, this is what we do. We're very clear. We've done it a bunch. You're either a believer or you're not. And if you're not, please don't work with us. You're going to hate our recommendations. You're going to hate our process. That's only possible if you're willing to be transparent. And that's I think it's just a strategic choice that agencies and service business owners have to answer for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Often though, in those kind of like the devil's advocate view of this is if you're giving everything out away and you've got the DIY person that's never intended to buy, surely that's a bad thing. Like surely like, obviously you've mentioned like there's a kind of a great level of trust there that you build and they kind of say 6 months down the line. But if you're running a business, there's always this anxiety or fear that brews around. If you give them the secret sauce, then they're going to do it and then win. Is there anything that you could like? Is there any reason why it's working for you? Is there any reason why that you're happy to give away all of this stuff?
It's a super interesting question. The thing that comes to mind, and in fact, I was talking to Anthony about this the other day. We talk a lot about, and I think this is particular for service businesses, but also applies in SaaS businesses. We talk a lot about influencing your buying champion, which in our business, our champion is usually these founders, seed Series A founders. Sometimes marketing leads start to show up around Series A, Series B. And so we need to convince them to buy. In this, if you look at the market though, like before we could even truly start influencing these champions at scale, there's sort of this, and I don't know what to call it yet. I'm calling them like third-party champions, but they're kind of like the ecosystem that these champions look for advice. And these are like companies, these are other influencers, other consultants. And when I look at how we even progressed, in the beginning, our first audience was actually other product marketers, like other folks like John, people who are in-house that are doing product marketing work, and we're like putting a spotlight on this little thing. And it was like when we got their support of like, man, these guys are really trying to help. Whenever those people interacted with our champions and positioning or product marketing came up, they got to like grease the skids, and they were like, yeah, you know what, Rob and Anthony, they actually are trustworthy and maybe you should listen to them. And so there's this subtle, like, we had to go earn the trust of all these third-party champions. And I can think of a bunch of others. There's like marketing communities in the space. There's a message testing company called Winter run by a guy named Pep, who like we're now buds with because there's like adjacencies. Like he's had us on the podcast. We've done guest newsletters for like Market One and Emily Kramer. It's like they're kind of the gatekeepers to our champions. And I guess just like in reflection, could we have gotten past the gatekeepers by showing up and being like, we have a secret sauce, it's positioning? And it's like, yeah, maybe, but we definitely wouldn't have had this support piece. So there wasn't like a let's open source. It was just this pure thesis driven. We just think good marketing for service businesses is basically consulting in public. And we always like that framing. And that's kind of just how we've treated things since day one.
Oh, that's really cool. That's really cool.
It's a spin on build in public for agencies, in a way.
Yeah, I think so. It does work the same way that people inherently get invested in what you do, what you say, what you're trying to achieve, how you help people. And so people kind of, like you say, it builds that trust, it builds that kind of semi-relationship type thing, that weird thing in social media where people go, I recognise that face, I trust that face, never met that face, but it becomes that thing. So at Fletch, you talk a lot about minimum viable positioning. That's something you talk about quite regularly. So what does that look like to you guys? What are you kind of helping people to get to? What is the MVP? It doesn't help, obviously, but in this context.
The whole concept behind it, and it's one of these things, it actually doesn't come up too much in our practice anymore, only conceptually, where we're using that terminology. It's basically like, what are the anchoring points that we're willing to commit to? Because when we basically like indexed positioning into these We call them positioning and messaging elements. And they're basically these reference points about the market you're in, the alternatives that are in place, the use cases that it's for, the capabilities you have. And at various stages of a startup, there's this like relative scale of like, are we willing to hang our hat on any of these anchors? And so when we started talking about minimum viable positioning, what we're really factoring in is like, how sharp should your positioning be based on the stage? And I would say there's loosely 3 stages of startups that we end up working with that come to us related to a positioning strategy that they should take. There's startups that are very early where I would say an experimentation positioning is best. Those are the ones where like we're not using a lot of anchors. We're actually being broad almost by design because they don't know. It's basically like, I don't want to aim it at the world, but can I aim it at North America? It's like, okay, like it's a starting point. There's a ton of shit you have to sort through to get that right. And what it really means is you're going to go test a bunch of sub positionings in that model. But for folks who we work with that are there, it's important for them to recognize they're in an experimentation phase and they shouldn't stay there very long. Because to get positioning to work, it's this long tail game of showing up every day and repeating yourself over and over, and repeating yourself of like, we're for North America, like isn't going to cut it. It's just not specific enough. It's not going to resonate. It's more just creating the initial framing. Then we move into more of like this next stage, which is much more of like your first wedge, like your first hit. We kind of have this thesis about startups that like become well known and carve out a brand. Is like, will you and can you create a hit song, so to speak? And so we like to talk about Stripe. They've got 20 products now. They're doing this financial infrastructure for the internet play. But really, the way they positioned for their first 10, 15 years on their way to 50 billion was like, we want to own online payment processing. And it was just that. And even today, when you think Stripe, you think payment, like payment solution. And it's like, now that they have that, then they can leverage their hit to go, record more records and add on more products. And even in fact, the way they sell it is an upsell and cross-sell type motion. But like for those companies at the startup phase, it's sort of like, where's your hit going to be? Like, where's your initial wedge? To borrow from other people who've talked about go-to-market, like Peter Thiel's written about the idea of like finding a really small monopoly, like small ponds. That's kind of what we're trying to do with that initial wedge hit. And then as you imagine, once you get that working, then it's a multifaceted approach. Like, how do we expand? What's the next layer of positioning? And usually that shows up in like, oh, we're going after more markets with more products. But it's very fragmented. And I think people forget about that. And that's a conversation we can get into as well. But that's loosely like minimum viable positioning is meant to like, how specific are you willing to be across those stages? And what anchoring points are you willing to lean into and say, yeah, I'm going to commit to that and I'm going to ignore the rest that don't fall into that bucket.
Yeah. So you talk about being fragmented. So how does that then, when you get to that point, whatever stage you're at, how does that then feed into the go-to-market strategy or the broader marketing strategy of the company?
Yeah, this is a really good question. So when we are evaluating, in fact, actually, I just did a post recently that was talking really about the connection and the difference between positioning and go-to-market strategy. And while there's no like perfect linear process, in general, the way we think about it is we think you should do your positioning first. Basically, where do you think there's an opportunity for the thing that you've built the most? Where can we go focus energy? What is our angle to actually explain our differentiation to that audience? And then once you have that, then you can start thinking in terms of go-to-market strategy, what channels and tactics should I be using to leverage that positioning the most? In other words, where is that messaging going to show up and how does it show up? And the mistake that we see time and time again is when startups think about marketing, they just think, I'm going to do everything. And so they take this positioning that might be razor sharp, but now suddenly they're in all channels and all mediums. And like, it's just like creating all this noise and chaos. And so whenever we're evaluating positioning options, we ask the founders like, hey, does this this audience that we're pointing to, can you reach them consistently? Do you have the talent or resources to show up in the channels where they're at? Or can you quickly build that? Is there room in those channels? Is it expensive? And one of the ones that just came up recently, we worked with a company that basically there was an angle where they're kind of in a Clay space. They do data enrichment. They've even considered competing directly with Clay. And one of the options we gave for them was this whole positioning of like, oh, position yourself against go-to-market engineers of like, oh, you don't need that. Just get this tool. But that's a really like new space. And for that to work, they'd have to show up where this conversation of go-to-market engineers is happening, which is like LinkedIn social media, Twitter social media. And so we asked the founders point blank, are you willing to be an influencer in this space and start putting out thought leadership, high quality at scale? And the founder's like, I don't really want to be an influencer. It's like, okay, then this positioning strategy you probably shouldn't do, because this isn't a write a blog and be done. This is, you're going to be the face of this argument. You're going to be fighting literally in a hopefully a constructive way with go-to-market engineer evangelists and saying, no, that's bullshit. You don't need them. And so like, that's how we tie the two together. And like the last bit I'll say that I'll let you guys react is like, you could in theory start with the go-to-market strategy first and basically look around and say, what are we really good at, right? Like you guys have your podcast. You guys might say like, man, we've got this podcast. It's really good. Like we're good at getting people on here. Like based on where we want to go, like how should we position this thing? Like we have this talent, we are getting a lot of traffic on the podcast. And that's where you would just lean into like, oh yeah, we do this tactic and channel really well, to then influence the positioning you should take. And so like Anthony and I could do that and be like, hey, we know how to get LinkedIn organic to work. Like, should we position a different way to support it? But so you could do it either way, but because they're interconnected.
So is that link there between, and I think this is where some people get positioning quite wrong, is that I think you've made it clear there's a difference between good positioning and the right positioning. There's always going to be, in a lot of cases, there's a position that would probably get you there and would get you, give you that kind of success, but it might not be the right fit for the people or the product or just the wider company. So how do you kind of decide that? How do you look at that and actually decide what, like, is there a process there for working out right versus good?
Yeah, there is a process. As you might imagine, it's a little squishy. We're basically putting on these different evaluation hats when we're looking at the positioning. And loosely, they follow can you execute this? Like that goes into the go-to-market tactic piece. It's like, okay. There's another piece that's just, is this compelling? Like if you said this to this audience, would anyone really care? Like, and really be critical? Or is this going to be like pushing a boulder uphill to this? And then like the third lens that often comes up is like market size. Like, does this help us reach the financial goals that we're looking for? And it's so interesting because the market size is where all the founders want to talk about. It's like they've been hanging out too much with VCs, I think, about market opportunity and TAM. And they've lost track of reality because most of the people who have this positioning issue, like they're really trying to figure out their first $1, $3, $5, $10 million. I would say, and this, maybe I'll eat my words, almost any market, regardless how specific, can hold a $10 million business. Like, I don't care how narrow you are, like the world is huge, the internet's huge, we don't realize it. This goes back to the fragmentation piece. And so, and sometimes we'll do this even as an exercise because we don't run a deep dive TAM analysis, but we'll take like the one they're most afraid of. And so I'll give a specific example. We just worked with a company. They had basically a unified API platform. So think Zapier, but for enterprises of sorts. Huge TAM, like connecting everything, anything. And it's like, okay, well, there's the issue. And so then we're like, we were trying to help them shape like, well, how do you get specific? And they had like, okay, it's finance. But then we even went down to this like rabbit hole of like, show me some examples of like finance enterprise APIs type stuff. And we got down to this Klaviyo integration for Shopify enterprises. It was like, okay, I threw that into ChatGPT and was like, give me a TAM analysis on this. Just the market for this little Klaviyo enterprise thing was like $50 or $100 million. And so we like stepped back and like these guys are doing $3 million a year. And I'm just like, hey, right now you offer hundreds of integrations, all these things. There's a world where you just go build the very best Klaviyo Shopify integration that handles all the enterprise edge cases. You could probably build a $25 million business there because no one's doing it. And they were like, oh. And so it's like this fear of being narrow, like always gets everybody tripped up. But anyway, that's a rabbit hole. So coming back, if I were to summarize, it's basically, do you have conviction in the argument? Is it believable? Will anybody care? Can you execute or think you can figure out pretty quickly the channels and tactics to get that to work? And is the market big enough and hopefully specific enough where it'll suffice your revenue goals and you have a chance of standing out? Those are loosely like the 3 or 4 criteria that we're looking at, and we're just weighing them all. It all comes back down to conviction for the founders. Like they really, this is that leap of faith, and like it's why entrepreneurship is hard in the first place.
Gosh, it's interesting. So like at the moment, it seems as though the way that Fletch mostly operate with their kind of like distribution channel is through LinkedIn. Can you discuss a bit more about that? Because I know that you've kind of been talking previously about exploring other channels like community spaces and that kind of thing. Obviously, you're building in public, so LinkedIn operates as a very good way of having that more open transparency. But can you kind of talk about why you've chosen LinkedIn as your primary distribution?
Yeah. So there's two things here. When we started, there were sort of two playbooks that we were loosely following. I made Anthony read Built to Sell by John Warlow. Like if you're thinking about productizing an agency or service, it's a must read. And then the other guy that we bumped into was Greg Hickman at Alt Agency. And he has this framework, he calls it the 5 1s. And it's one product, one avatar, one channel, one tactic for 1 year to get to $1 million business. I'm like, oh, it's interesting. And we were basically following that playbook. And so when we started, we knew we just wanted to do one thing. And you asked why LinkedIn? Not a whole lot of rhyme or reason. There was the background is I had spent, there was maybe a 6 to 10 week period where another colleague of Anthony and I, we started experimenting with a cold outbound strategy, very specific, and it was working. So there's a whole world of Fletch that is built on this hyper specific, basically we were building these like very specific market reports. I could get any meeting I wanted with any founder in these very narrow markets. And then they were all like, well, what do you want to sell me? And ironically, we didn't have a service to sell at the time. So like it never actually went that way, but we could have built the whole business doing it that way. But then at the same time, Anthony and I just started writing on LinkedIn and like just, it was kind of just fun. And we started getting attention, but then we started getting meetings, like founders and people would raise their hands. They're like, I saw this post, it resonated. I think you can help me. We're like, oh, and so we just followed that. It was like, it started to work. And we knew we weren't going to be this like scatter shot tactic approach where we just doubled down. And so, you know, here we are. I would say we've officially spun out. It's a little over 2 years, but it's closer to 3 years since we've been posting on LinkedIn. And it's still like, it's where we put 95% of our effort. All the extra channel stuff is residual. So like, you guys are kind enough to have us on your podcast. Thank you. Like this isn't, you could argue an extra channel, but we don't have a program. I'm not reaching out to people that are like, let me on your podcast, let me on your podcast. It's more just like give to the network and people ask us on. So that's great. We get the same thing for guest newsletters. We have a similar mechanic where some of our audience is VCs and accelerators and they're like, hey, come do a presentation for my portfolio. And we're like, sure, we'll do that. We get speaking engagements, but all of those that I just listed, like afterthoughts, not official programs that we're not trying to chase. And that's been enough to drive more demand than we can handle just with one channel. And so when we begin to layer, it's going to just be one more thing. And it's like, what is that thing will be the question. Is it outbound? Do we go to X? We thought we could just copy and paste the strategy for X and Twitter. Doesn't work that way. Twitter's a little different in terms of how you build an audience, build a community. But yeah, sorry, I think I lost the question in the weeds. Like it kind of just, we picked and it started working and we're like, great, let's just keep doing it. And that's where we're at 2.5 years.
I think that is still a very useful answer because I think a lot of people early on in their business or early on to do it, there's a panic involved and there's an element of, and you mentioned the scattergun approach. I think people default, even people go, my main thing is LinkedIn. They go, but I'll also fire off a load of cold emails. I'll also do this and I'll also pay for ads. And I think that's how you end up in a situation. And I've been there myself where you end up kind of just doing nothing everywhere. You kind of do bits and bobs here and there, and you don't give anything enough focus. And so you kind of go through the motions with your LinkedIn posts. You kind of just send off some mediocre cold emails, but you don't send enough anyway for cold emails to work. And you kind of go through and it's tiring and ineffective. So I think it's that they're kind of the 5 1s because you made those same recommendations to me a couple weeks ago, and I've read most of that book now. I've looked at the 5 1s and it's changed how I've looked at things because he's going to go, oh yeah, no, I've kind of been wasting time trying to do too many things and I haven't made the decision to consciously commit.
Yeah.
And I think that makes a huge difference, and I think more people probably need to do that, even though their instinct tells them not to.
And it's the quality threshold that you're talking about. It's like when it comes to the tactic, and we don't think about this. We think as marketing is something to do and to turn on. It's like, no, it's really freaking hard. It's a part of the product mechanics for how you sell something. And so like you have to be world class in it to really get it to work. Chris Walker's talked about this. His whole stance, and I agree with most of it, is all marketing works. Some work better than others, but you can get any marketing tactic and channel to work to some degree. And so from people who are running these businesses, it's like, which one are you going to get up every day and put at least 4 hours into it? It's like, that's what it takes. And so when even with us today, like we're putting 3 to 4 hours a day in some way, shape, or form into content for LinkedIn. And I think people get bored. They lean too much into automation, and it's like they shouldn't be surprised because your shitty cold outbound or your regurgitated ChatGPT listicle didn't work on LinkedIn. Like, imagine that. Like, that's crazy. Like, there's no craft to it at all. And I think when it comes to marketing, like, craft is rewarded in these channels, and you have to be willing to be an expert in them. But it's not usually viewed that way.
Gosh, that's interesting. So, another thing that I've kind of like looked into is that you do like live experiments with your kind of work. So you've tested different copywriting approaches, and you've even brought in specialist copywriters. If I'm correct in this, you can tell me that I'm completely wrong and my research is bad. What have you learned from these experiments? Because it sounds cool. I always like experiments. I'm a person that's like I get bored of A/B testing. I get excited by actual, genuine, experimental research and that kind of thing. And I suppose because you've got such a wide and kind of like large community that will kind of help in, kind of take on some things and say, look, this isn't working. You're able to kind of test that out. So, like, what have you found? What cool experiments have you done with that?
Yeah, it's really interesting. Even hearing the word experiment, we use it internally, but we're not very structured about it. And I think this is important. Especially for small businesses, because having come from larger startups and also just like bigger agencies that are almost like you have to tee up a quantitatively good experiment and all these things. If you find yourself doing that in the early stage at all, or if you're a really small business, I think you're doing experimentation wrong, because experiments at that stage are extremely micro, and the majority of them are qualitative. And so I'll give you some examples that we've just kind of gone through. And all of these, by the way, are just optimizing for the very specific thing that's in front of us. And so the ones that pop in my head are experiments in terms of what to do LinkedIn-wise. And so Anthony and I, first year, we literally looked at the LinkedIn piece as like, I don't know what people are going to react to. I don't know what's going to work. Hit publish and see what the fuck happens. And it was like every post was a test. Every comment was a test. Sometimes we'd even put ideas out there that we didn't totally believe in just to see how people reacted. And that was us just like poking and prodding the market and the audience. And we're like, oh, yeah, it's this weird thing. Whenever we say category creation is really stupid, everyone gets all fired up, but then this other audience pops up and they're like, oh, it's not real. And we're like, oh, okay, there's something there. There's like a pressure point we could use. And so like there's that on the marketing piece, in addition to all the experiments of, should my hook have 10 words or 11? Should I do 2 lines? Like, all those are experiments, but we didn't run like a blind 100 test quantitatively like specific. It was just like, did I think that worked? And so there was hundreds, if not thousands of those happening all the time. The next one that comes to mind was even in our service design. When we started, we were posting about product marketing, but we didn't really know yet. And so we'd get people in the room, and like by the hour, Anthony and I would pitch made up services that we didn't quite have yet until we sold one. They were like, oh shit, we got to go build the thing. And so Anthony and I just remember we had solved through LinkedIn. We figured out a way to get 15 to 20 calls each of just these founders and marketers. And so we're just having chats. And at the end, our goal was like, pitch them something. And so we would just call each other multiple times a day. It's like, what'd you pitch? What'd you sell? How'd you frame it? Now I look at those all experiments, but they were their life. The half-life of the experiment might have been like 3 minutes. I didn't like that. That totally didn't work. I'm not trying that again. But then we're looking for patterns. And for us, it was like, wow, okay, this strategic messaging thing, it kept coming up. And so we started doing that. And then you learn again. So the next big experiment phase for us was, okay, our first 20 clients, we just did positioning and messaging. And we gave them this strategy doc. And we had like these workshops. And we kept hearing the same feedback. This was awesome. I have so much more clarity in who I'm going after, what I'm going to say. But what do I do with it? And we're like, what do you mean? Like, that's what positioning is. Like, go do your marketing, go update your sales deck, go update your website, like go do all these things. And then that was just a realization, kind of a separate thread of like, oh, our product kind of sucks. It solves this one problem, but it doesn't really solve for like, again, kind of the go-to-marketing. Like, how are they going to make this real? And so that was us like, oh, we had to pick a thing to give them. And we picked homepages. And this is what gets us into the copywriter piece. We then started to do these projects. We're like, oh, we do this whole strategy thing and we throw in the homepage for free. And we actually framed it that way. But you might imagine, even as an afterthought in our value prop, the quality of the page was pretty shitty. And so then we started getting feedback that was like, I love the process. You know, I know we got the page, but I actually had to rewrite the whole page. Like, I didn't like what you guys had. We're like, and again, this is Anthony. We're like, we're okay copywriters. We're like, and it was more of a process issue because it truly was an afterthought. It's like, all right, let's just get it documented on the page. And we realized, no, there has to be some pedigree in here. And that was us running experiments of like, do we write it? Do we have a copywriter write it? Do we write the first version and then have them write it? And then we just tried a bunch of those different configurations. And then that kind of worked. But then we ran into another issue. The moment you start getting feedback on the copy, it never ends. And then they're like, what about SEO? And what about these other things? We're like, well, shit, like how do we draw a clear line? And this let us evolve again of like, well, how could we do this? Do we do feedback in Figma? Do we build an app that like structures it? And, you know, here we are, we do use the app route where we have these like really clear boundaries. And so I go on this big monologue of all these experiments to say, we're constantly experimenting, but we definitely are not taking a scientific approach at all. Yeah. Speed wins in all of this. And Anthony and I, basically, we've gotten to this point where like, we'll just talk through things. And then if we feel something needs to change, the person who brought it up should just go do it. Like, not at scale. Don't go change the website, the whole process, but go do it once, twice, or 3 times, and then write about it or come back and argue. We'll argue about it, and then we'll make a decision. And that sort of feedback validation loop is loosely how we've made every update to our business.
And that kind of echoes what you said before about smaller startups can be more agile, can do those smaller experimentations, can be a bit looser. Whereas obviously as you get to the size of, I don't know, Salesforce, whoever, it's probably harder to. And those experiments have to be a bit more documented or a bit more, it becomes a bit more expensive for them just to kind of throw an idea out there. But when you are smaller, you can do that. And so it means that you guys can do that and and it doesn't really matter too much because you can just change it back the next day if you need to.
100%. And I think a lot of this comes back to the question of like, do you have fit? Do you have something that's working or don't you? Because if you do have fit, then all the employees you're going to hire, like they're all going to be optimization projects. Like this already works. Like don't fuck it up, but make it better. Like just monitor it and make small tweaks and we'll measure it at scale. It's like, and that's fine. When you're early, it's like, no, it's like whatever works. And so you have to do this like triaging as a service business owner of like, where fundamentally are things breaking down? And because there's 100 things we want to do and we can't do them all. They all have opportunity costs. So that's how we start to think about even like our experimentation and like what to work on. And I'll share with you guys, this is why I always say like, even for solo businesses, like if you can have a co-founder somehow, like you got to find a way to do this. Because Anthony and I have this concept, we call it the big baby rule. And so before we make any big decisions in our business, whether we like do a new marketing channel or like change a big part of the process, we both really have to agree, and it has to be like a hell yeah. But as we know, with making product and marketing decisions, there's also 100 other, if not 1,000 other small decisions that have to happen. When those come up, and like we basically we'll debate them quickly, but then it's whoever's being the big baby about it. It's like, because there's clearly a passion or more of like, I know this needs to change. And so we look at every decision kind of through that lens of like, is this really important? Is it critical? If it's not a hell yeah for both of us, we're not going to do it. But for an experimentation standpoint, if someone is really passionate, go do one. And so let's say Anthony wants to make a big change to the process. I'm not on board for it yet. It's basically like, yeah, if you're going to be a big baby, just go do one. Like change it. I don't care if you do it with 1 or 2 projects. I'm not ready to change the whole thing. And that loose heuristic for us has been like super helpful because it's helped us slow down when we need to. But then also lets us go really fast when someone's really passionate. I'm like, no, it needs to be this way. It's like, okay, go prove it to me.
I imagine that kind of prevents, because obviously Fletch operates as a 2-man team. It's not like there's a wide, large scale thing. So if one person is just saying, I don't really feel comfortable with it, or I don't think it's going to work out, then you're kind of in a state of lock. Whereas if you kind of open yourself up for that, you kind of like, prove me wrong. And it allows you to kind of go, well, okay, we've both agreed on this. So no matter what happens, I can do this in the future with whatever kind of step we have, whatever process we want to change. It kind of like, it levels it seems to be.
For sure. And I would say it requires real honesty and trust. You really have to, and communication style, I think, matters. And this is something where I don't know, but I think founders need to have a common ground in communication style, and sometimes even the way, but maybe there's an argument of a yin-yang setup's better. I just think like if you don't communicate the same way, you can get in trouble. And so Anthony and I, we're both very argumentative, in-your-face transparency. We're constantly straw manning and steel manning each other's arguments, and like we're both okay with that. That's not we don't feel like anyone's being too critical, and so it really works. The other thing is it's very inefficient. It's very effective, but it's extremely inefficient. And we even make fun of ourselves of like, yeah, what company doesn't have 2 CEOs? Because Anthony and I's roles are identical. Like we both do all the marketing, we both do all the sales, we both do all the projects, we both build the service. Like we're building tool, like we do everything. And the pros of that is we get to stay really close. Like the feedback loops are there. We know how to do every role in the business. So if we do have to like pulse or do coverage or train certain people, it's like there's no like bottlenecks when that comes up. But it's just slower. Right? It's like, yeah, what ship doesn't have 2 captains? Like, the whole, I can make fun of it a bunch of different ways. And so what'll be interesting for us is whether or not that evolves of like, are there certain things that Anthony begins to own that I begin to own? And we would only do that for things if we felt like we could go faster by getting some separation. Because the risk we'll run into as any big company grows is just that disconnection point. Disconnection between the work, disconnection between the customer and where they're at. And so Anthony and I have done a good job so far of just staying really close, and that's constant communication is really the key to that one.
Yeah, makes it right. I could keep asking questions until Monday, but more importantly, we've got a quiz to do. So every episode we have a quiz where I pick the guest versus Alex. In this quiz, it's called Whose Tagline Is It Anyway? Which is the first time the quiz has had a name, and I was very happy with it. Really enjoyed it. So there is still the perception amongst listeners that these quizzes are unfair against Alex. I don't know how. In the last quiz we did, Alex, you got a point off at the end. Alex, I think it was. It was.
Yeah, I think I got a point.
No, I think you got more than I think. I think it got better. The last episode, maybe it was before that. I can't remember who. I lose track of the order. But the point is, I'm trying to make them as fair as possible. So this time, completely random taglines have been picked. Completely random.
Oh no, 100%. I know where it's going.
And so I'll give you a tagline, and then you just got to guess who the company is, and then you get a point for each one. The specific company. So you have 5 each. You just have to guess who it is. 1 point each. Completely random. So we'll start off with you, Robert. Okay. Question 1. The tagline is the number 1 AI CRM.
Ooh, I have a decent guess. I'm going to go with Adio because I think I saw this on their page, but I'm not positive.
I'm afraid that's incorrect. I will pass it over to Alex.
Oh my god!
This could go awfully for me if now Alex then wins it. Luckily,
I have no clue at all whatsoever. I'm just the visual guy. I'm panicking.
Name a CRM.
You're right.
I
don't know. Salesforce. I don't know.
It's the correct answer.
I was going to say that's the backup.
Alex, this might be the first time Alex has been in the lead in this quiz. This is after probably 12 quizzes, first time. This is unprecedented.
Well, now I got to a little bit.
I have a feeling it might turn around as we go.
I feel like I'm gonna get demolished now.
So Alex, this one for you.
Okay.
World's number 1 habit-breaking wearable.
World's number 1 habit-breaking. Is it Hoop? Is it Hoop? Is that the product?
It is not Hoop. I'll pass it over.
And I think it's called Whoop. but I like your little version. No, say it again. Number one, habit changing.
Habit breaking wearable. I'll give you a clue. It gives the user an electric shock.
Oh, wow. I was going to say... Actually, it doesn't change my answer, but that just confuses me even more. But I'm going to say Fitbit.
It is not, though. I'd love them to introduce it.
Oh, that would be amazing.
It's Pavlok. They're called Pavlok, apparently. It was just researching this quiz.
A little play on Pavlov's
That
dog.
was...
Yeah.
It was... But yeah, what an insane idea is that, apparently it just electrocutes you when you do it. So, sounds awful. Question 2. Rob, for you, think different.
I mean, how old does this go back?
Some of these are current, some of these are past.
Like, the owners of Think Different is Apple, so I'll say Apple, but
Apple is the correct answer. Okay, so it's one apiece. You've drawn level. Alex, to take the lead back.
I'm clearly very underqualified for this one, I feel. But, okay.
Okay, Alex, your second one is good for your bum, great for the world.
Good for your bum, great for the world. Oh, I mean, I don't know why. I've got to say, is it like something like a bamboo, something like a natural product that's good?
I can't take bamboo. Is bamboo a real thing?
Yeah, it is. It is.
Oh, it is. Okay, cool. I thought you on a whim made up a company, which I thought would be, in all fairness, just as impressive. Yeah. I'll pass it over. Rob.
I don't know the company, but I think you're on the right line. I think my mind goes to bidets, and it's like I don't know who the bidet company would be that would own this. Either that or Dude Wipes. So the only brand I actually know, I'll say Dude Wipes, even though it's wrong. It's probably a bidet company.
It is wrong answer. The real answer was who gives a crap. So it was another toilet paper brand. So Alex, you were close then to getting a 2-point lead there, but
So that's a real company, not a trick question where you're just saying.
All of these are real companies.
I feel like John's taken over and he's just marvelled at certain ones that he thought that's quite funny, and he's just enjoyed it himself.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's not the most maturity to some of these choices. I mean, of the random choices the machine chose, these. Right, Rob, your next one here. Unlimited films, series, and more. I put the emphasis in the wrong place. It sounded weird. Unlimited films, series, and more.
Okay. Unlimited. For some reason, I don't think it's Netflix, but I should say Netflix. I'll just say Netflix.
You should say Netflix. That's the correct answer.
Okay.
And you've taken the lead. It's 2-1.
I think the problem is Rob is a very intelligent man, so he's thinking at very high level, and we're very simple people.
Oh, yeah, I can tell the place you're going, well, it'd be too simple to say Apple. No. Too simple to say Netflix. No, just assume it's that these quizzes are mostly written to humiliate Alex. There's no real... There's no trickery there for yours.
That's the unlock there for how these...
Yeah. It's a humbling moment for me.
So, Alex, your question 3 is giving chewing gum a second life.
Oh, God, that sounds horrible. That's an awful tagline.
First, I can guess. What would you both think that is? Just from that tagline, what do you think they do?
I would love it to be benches, kind of like bus stop benches or something like that. But
wait, wasn't it give gum a second life?
Gum a second life.
My hope would be is that someone figured out how to make zebra gum last longer than 2 seconds, but I don't know.
That'd be a longer life. Second life would be it goes bland for another 2 minutes and then the flavour kicks in again, which would be wild for a product marketing point of view.
I want it to be recycled gum, so it's just somebody's previously chewed on it, and then you just get it's like a little bit of cheaper. It's like a low value.
Yeah. So recycled into just more gum.
Yeah.
I mean, what would the product? What would the brand name be for that? Let's make up a company name so you can get it right.
I mean, you guys are the smart people. I don't know. Second gum.
No, second gum is incorrect. Unfortunately, I'll pass over through. I will give you a clue though, Rob, is that they make shoes with the gum.
Oh my God.
Whoa. Oh wait.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, what is it, like double mint? But no, I'm gonna say Tom's. Now that you brought that up.
Incorrect. That was too. It's called Gumshoe. They didn't think that far. They just they said what they saw and went with Gumshoe.
I like Tom's though because they're a very ethical, like focused brand.
That's where my
and their shoes smell minty, so it's surprising. Question 4, Rob. Yours is don't be evil. Google. Obviously, this is very out of date. Yeah, that's correct. It is Google. Obviously, they stopped sticking to that a while ago. I know that they officially. That was the real moment where you went. They don't give a shit at all. They officially, got rid of it, put it on the back burner. Who lacks the self-awareness to go? Let's put this statement out. We're no longer doing that. Well, so it's
a wild thing. I mean, it made a lot of sense to them, but it is a wild thing to have in any of your marketing. Of just like, hey, what's the big goal you have? Well, I'm just gonna try not to be evil this year. Like that's the
because then inevitably they had to then go. that was too ambitious for us. So
there's gonna be a point where they go, our tagline's changed, where we now might be evil. There's just you're kind of like committing. You've got to fit to infinity.
Evil fashionable.
We
do evil right.
Efficient evil is a great way to approach it. Just go, sure, we're evil, but look how fast you get your results now.
Yeah.
Okay, Alex. Very similar product. When words aren't enough, say it with a potato.
When words aren't enough, say it with a potato.
I've been a customer of this product.
No way.
Okay, so Alex, you've really got to get ahead of this. If you've
Alex,
we've done Sassy as Fuck for 4 years. You should really be aware of any potato-based businesses.
I skipped out on that episode that we had of just the potatoes. Fuck. I can't. I don't know. McCain, because they do chips and potatoes and stuff like that. So McCain.
I'm afraid that's incorrect, Rob.
So I believe, and I bring this up as an example because they make like tens of millions of dollars doing this, and I usually just bring it up to say like you don't need to reinvent anything crazy. I believe it's a company called Potato Parcel.
That's the correct answer.
Over potatoes.
It's the most amazing business idea in the world. And you're right. It's an extraordinarily profitable business. I think they still do it themselves. I think they still just by hand
They used to do them just marker, and now I think they do they'll put images and of people on them. And I'll remember I was part of an innovation group that was our aim at this company was to spin up new products. And the guy who helped me build that program, when I left, I sent him a potato parcel. I just said, "Hey, thanks for letting me create products."
Nice,
because we just thought it was the most ridiculous idea ever. It's making millions of dollars.
And it's an idea that markets itself just by purely that every new person. Because now, Alex, I bet in your head you're going, "I'd quite like to send a potato to someone."
I'm already on the website, and I think I'm about to click purchase, and I'm going to upload your face just to all of our past guests, maybe. Or
are humans weird? You see that, and then you're just like, man, now it's kind of cool. It's kind of novel. Of who would ever do that? It's such an asinine thing.
If you did it yourself, fucking nuts. You'd make enemies. It's insane. If you actually did it yourself, but the fact that you've got a third party to do it
There's
for
a middleman. They're crazy. Yeah. I'm just tapping into that. Yeah.
I just typed it into a form online. They're the ones who are actually writing on the potato. I think that's a good way. It protects you from it. It is 4-1 though. That is the problem is now that we are at 4-1 for the quiz. So I'll.
Honestly, what fired me up was the initial comment of Al's the first time ever Alex took the lead, and we just can't have that. So
I could sense the competitive side of you just unlocked at that point, and you're like, "I'm going to watch this man burn."
just locked in straight away. It's like I'm gonna fuck this guy. I just met him today, but I'm gonna fuck him up.
With respect, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Question 5, Rob, for you is. Begin your Creative Cloud journey today.
Man, what's the product? It's Adobe.
It is Adobe. Alex's favorite Adobe. It is.
You might have got that.
Fuck Adobe.
That was tuned for the designer to really.
It was, yeah. I already felt like my inbuilt hatred for all Adobe products just kind of burned through.
So that is unfortunate. It does make it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. To 1 at the moment. So I will make it. I'll do what I did last time, okay? I'll be fair. I'll make this point worth 4 points. So if you get this one, it's 4 points.
Okay.
It's draw level. I'll have to find a tiebreaker.
Okay. At one point, this is going to screw you over, John.
At one point, eventually, I should probably write a tiebreaker because I keep doing this now, and I'm tempting fate. Alex, to draw level for 4 points.
Yeah.
Whose tagline is this? A revolutionary new toilet system.
Revolutionary toilet
Revolutionary,
system.
and I will say this is somehow to me the most evil company on this list, and Apple's in the list, Google's in the list, There's a lot. Adobe's in the list. This is to me the most evil on this list.
Oh man, it's probably going to be something like I'm going to say like it's a compostable toilet thing, like compost toilet. It's shit, but I've got no fucking clue.
It is not whatever you just said. Rob, I will hand this over. I
don't even have hopeful. A guess. I got nothing on this one.
What is this?
The correct answer was slanty, and what they've done is they meant a toilet that's on a fucking slant so that people are uncomfortable and don't go to the toilet as much at work. That is what it's designed for. It's evil. It's designed just to make people uncomfortable on the toilet. As if people aren't uncomfortable enough on the toilet at work, they thought, let's add extra layers here, like gravity. So yeah, that's and I thought that was genuinely. I was researching. I thought it was a fake company. I thought it was a parody company. It is not. It's a real thing.
Oh my god!
Fuck you, Slanty. And that's the quiz. That's 5-1 to Rob. Congratulations, Rob, for doing that.
Well done. Well done.
How does it feel to have come back? I mean, that was the most triumphant comeback in quiz history on the podcast, coming down from 1-0 down to 5-1.
It feels good. I got to say, I feel well trained. If you guys never met Sahil over at Spiralize, he runs a show called, what does he call it? Revenue Crimes or Conversion Crimes. I actually forget the title. Sorry, Sahil. And so he puts people through the ringer of like guessing headlines and companies and what type of companies they are. So sorry, Alex. I've actually
you've been through the training. That's not you. If anything, you've been training this for months, if not years, just to beat Alex today, and that's a dedication we respect on this podcast.
LinkedIn post
Rob.
incoming.
Yeah. So, Rob, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and chatting with us. Like I said before, we could have talked to you all day long, except for it's starting to go dark here, so let me eventually have to go make dinner. But really appreciate it. But before you go, though, where can everyone find and follow you?
Yeah, LinkedIn's going to be the best bet. So find me or my co-founder, Anthony, there. And then our website, fletchpmm.com. Check out what we do for B2B startups when it comes to positioning. Thanks for having me.
Amazing. Thank you very much for coming on.
Much.